So, welcome everyone, and thank you for listening. Today, we are going to explore something that affects almost everyone but rarely gets named directly. You're going to explore the exhaustion of trying to fit yourself into labels that were never designed for your actual shape. So, before we begin, you can receive this in whatever way works for you. Sitting, walking, moving through your day. There's no requirement to be still, just be present to what I'm offering. This is part teaching, part guided exploration, and part permission to stop performing a version of yourself that society expects, but that doesn't actually fit who you are. Here's what I want you to consider. How many labels are you carrying right now? You may be a husband, wife, partner, mother, father, employee, boss, homeowner, renter, friend, success, failure, a good person, a spiritual person, an addict, healed, broken, together, falling apart. And now ask yourself a more uncomfortable question. How many of these labels did you consciously choose? And how many were handed to you? By family, by culture, and by society. And you simply picked them up because that's what you were supposed to do. So let me give you a specific example from my own life. I'm a facilitator, someone people come to sometimes for guidance, and that's a label. And I notice people sometimes see me as this healer figure, permanently centered, always wise, spiritually evolved. And in reality, I'm also an anxious person who overeats sometimes and who misses people from my past. And that's the truth behind the label. And for years, I've performed what I thought what a good therapist looked like. I'm always centered, always wise, always smiling, and I always have the answer. Until I realized that's exhausting and also not actually me. Some days I'm uncertain. Some days I'm still figuring it out. Some days I'm sitting with somebody thinking, I have no idea what to say right now. And then something comes through anyway. And when I stopped performing perfect healer and started showing up as myself, still skilled, trained, committed, but also human sometimes anxious, and definitely imperfect, something shifted. My work started to go deeper. The people that came to me felt permission to be human too, and the connection became real instead of transactional. That's what we are exploring today. Most people are not suffering because they are failing at life. They are suffering because they are trying to succeed at a version of life that was never theirs to begin with. I'll say this again. Most people are not suffering because they are failing at life. They are suffering because they are trying to succeed at a version of life that was never theirs to begin with. They are performing roles, they are playing parts, they are fitting into boxes. And their bodies, their nervous systems, and their souls are exhausted from constant performance and role playing. And I see this everywhere. Just examples. The woman who achieved everything society said would make her happy. She had the marriage, the home, the career. And then she feels empty because none of it was what she actually wanted. And then there's the man who's climbing the corporate ladder. His father expected him to climb. hating every step, but he can't stop because then he'll feel like a failure. Then there's a parent who's drowning trying to meet Instagram perfect parenting standards, feeling inadequate because their real life is messy and imperfect. Then there's the person who got the degree, the job, the partner that looks good on paper, but then they wake up thinking, is this it? Is this my life? So, what we are exploring today is not about rejecting society or becoming a rebel, but about understanding the difference between structure and script, between participating in the world and performing for it, between having roles and being imprisoned by them. So, this is about freedom to be yourself, actually yourself, not the version that looks good on paper or makes sense to other people. The freedom to create your own normal within the world that exists. Let's explore this together. So, before we go deeper, I want to offer you some context about how this happens. Because understanding the mechanism helps remove the shame. So, you're not weak for feeling trapped by expectations. This is how being human works. From the moment you were born, you were being socialized into labels, not intentionally, but inevitably. Think about it now. As a newborn, you were just a pure being. You cried when you needed something, you laughed when something delighted you, and you had no concept of appropriate or what will people think or how I'm supposed to be. You were just being yourself. And then conditioning began. Your family had expectations, maybe explicit ones. In this family, we don't raise our voices, boys don't cry, girls are polite, we work hard, we don't talk about feelings. Or maybe they were implicit ones, things that were never said but always felt. Which emotions were welcome and which made people uncomfortable? Which behaviors got praise and which got silence or disapproval? Your culture also had norms. Depending on where you grew up, there were scripts about how people like you should act. Scripts about gender, scripts about success, scripts about what makes a life valuable. And these were not laws, so you could technically break them, but there were consequences for not following them. Judgment, exclusion, and the sense that you're not quite right. Society may have definitions also of what counts as success, what looks like a good life, what milestones you're supposed to hit, and when you're supposed to hit them. Get educated, get a job, get married, buy a house, have kids, retire. Die having made something of yourself. So the script was written before you were born. And because you were a child who needed belonging to survive, literally, you learned. You learned what gets approval and what gets rejection. You learned which parts of yourself are acceptable and which need to be hidden. You learned the roles you're supposed to play. Now, let me add a layer from family constellation work. The systemic approach I'm trained in that looks at how patterns move through family lineages. So, you didn't just inherit explicit rules, you inherited invisible loyalties, unspoken agreements about who you are allowed to be based on who came before you. So, let me give you some specific examples from my practice. And if any of my clients are listening right now, this is definitely not you. These are completely different people from a different planet, from a different country. So, in the first example, A woman who couldn't allow her to be successful every time she was about to achieve something significant, a promotion, a business breakthrough, or any accomplishment, she'd self sabotage. And she never understood why. And when we looked at her family system, we discovered that her mother had been incredibly talented but never got to develop her gifts because she had to sacrifice everything for her family. And this woman's unconscious loyalty was, if my mother couldn't succeed, neither can I, because succeeding would mean leaving her behind. In the second example, a man who could never settle into a committed relationship. He loved his partner, wanted to commit, but every time it got serious, he'd find reasons to move away. Now, his father had been trapped in an unhappy marriage and had told him as a child, don't make the same mistakes I did. So his unconscious absorbed this as commitment is a trap, don't let yourself be caught. So he was being loyal to his father's suffering by refusing to risk what his father had risked. Another example, a person who couldn't stop working, that's me. Burnout, exhaustion, but couldn't rest without guilt. Their grandparents had survived extreme poverty, where rest meant danger, where stopping work meant not eating. And 3 generations later, their bodies still carried this programming that rest is dangerous, productivity equals survival. And once again, if you're somebody I've worked with and you're thinking, wait, that sounds like me, it's not. I've changed all the details and you're safe, your secrets are safe. So these aren't conscious choices, they are adaptations, they are loyalties, they are invisible contracts with your family system that say, I'll carry what you carried, I'll be loyal to your experience by limiting myself in the same way. And from the constellation perspective, these are what Bert Hellinger called entanglements. That when somebody becomes entangled with an ancestor's fate and unconsciously lives out their unresolved patterns. Now, here's where we get a bit more specific, that these patterns don't just live in your mind, they also live in your body. Your nervous system learned before you had language what's safe and what's dangerous. It learned through your caregiver's nervous systems, how they held you, how they responded to you, what emotional states were allowed in this presence. So if your mother was anxious, your nervous system learnt the world is unsafe, be vigilant. If your father was shut down emotionally, your nervous system learnt feelings are overwhelming, stay disconnected. And if your family avoided conflict, your nervous system learnt disagreement is dangerous, keep the peace at all costs. And here's what's crucial. Your body is still responding to those early learnings, even though you're an adult now, even though the original circumstances are long past. Your nervous system is running old programs designed for a childhood environment that no longer exists. So you end up here, exhausted, disconnected, and wondering why you're not happy, even though on paper your life looks fine. Maybe you've achieved the labels, you got married, you bought the house, you built the career, or maybe you're still struggling to achieve them and you feel like you're failing. Either way, suffering is the same, because the problem isn't whether you have the labels or you don't have them. The problem is measuring yourself against labels at all. The problem is believing your worth, your validity, and your right to exist depends upon fitting on predefined categories. Take a breath here now with me. And just notice what's present in your body as you hear this described. Notice if there's recognition. Notice if there's resistance. Both are information. Now, I want to make a crucial distinction because this isn't about rejecting everything. This isn't about becoming anti society or living alone in the woods, refusing all structure. Though if that's your version of freedom, no judgment there. But there's a difference between structure and script, between framework and performance, between the roles that serve you and the roles that imprison you. Now, let me explain this very specifically because this distinction is where freedom lives. Structure exists, laws exist, institutions exist, collective agreements about how we organize society, they all exist, and many of them serve very important purposes. We need some level of shared understanding to function together, and we need agreements about how to coexist. Marriage, for an example, exists as a legal structure. It offers protections, shared assets, legal rights around medical decisions, tax benefits, immigration status, and that's all structure, that's framework, that can be useful. Work is also a structure. So we live in an economic system where most of us need income, and that's the reality. It's just the framework that we are currently operating in. Parenthood exists as a structure. If you have children, they need care, guidance, food, shelter, education. So that's responsibility, and that's also the reality. So these structures themselves are not the problem. Then we have the script, the performance, the unspoken rules about what structures are supposed to look like. So, marriage as a script says you must merge completely. You must want all same things. You must be present as a happy couple at all times. And you must follow traditional gender roles. You must never admit struggle. Your partner should complete you. Sex should be spontaneous and frequent and perfect. And you should just know what the other person needs without talking about it. And you must post cute anniversary photos on social media. Parenthood now, as a script says, children become your entire identity. You must always be fulfilled by this role. You must live for them. You must enjoy every moment, every tantrum, every sleepless night. You must sacrifice everything, including yourself. You must do it right, according to whichever parenting philosophy is currently dominant: attachment parenting, free range parenting, gentle parenting, or whatever TikTok is saying this week. You must never admit that you are unable to do it. Your house must look organized. Your kids must be well behaved. You must make it look effortless. And bonus points if you're also fit and having a thriving career while being a parent. Now, the work script says your job title defines your worth as a human. Success means climbing always higher, always more money, always more status. You should always be hustling, be productive. Your value is your output. Retirement is the prize, and you're working hard your whole life. Meaning you spend 40 years waiting to actually live. And if you're not passionate about your work, something is wrong with you. Side hustle culture says if you're not monetizing your hobbies, you're wasting your potential. And then adult life script comes in. By certain ages, you should have achieved certain milestones: house, marriage, kids, career, success. If you're 35 and you don't have these, you're behind. If you're 40 and you're still renting, you've probably failed at life. And if you're single at any age past 30, something must be wrong with you. And if you haven't figured it out by now, you're broken. So success looks one way, and anything else is just making excuses. Do you feel the difference? The structure says, here is a framework for how we organize certain aspects of collective life. The script that we just spoke about says, here is exactly how you must perform within that framework. And if you deviate, you're doing it wrong, and you're also a bad person. Here's what I'm offering. Take what resonates. You can participate in structures while refusing to perform the scripts. You can engage with society while defining your own relationship to it. You can have roles without being imprisoned by them. This is freedom within reality and not escaping from reality. This is saying, I am married and I define what it means for me, not what society says it should mean. I am a parent and I do it my way, not according to parenting culture's impossible standards. I work and my job doesn't define my worth at all. I am an adult and what looks like for me might be different than what it looks like for you and others. I have responsibilities and I'm still a whole person beyond those roles. You can use the structures that serve you and you can reject the scripts that don't. Let me give you some real examples of what it looks like in practice. What does it actually look like to create your own normal within the structures that exist? Let me again offer you some examples from my own life and from people that I've worked with, not as prescriptions, but as possibilities, because your version will be yours. And once again, if you're somebody I've worked with, listening to this and thinking it's about me, these are completely fictional. I may have made them up just before starting this recording while eating cereal. So for marriage and partnership, beyond the script, society's script will say, you must live together, you must share everything, finances, friends, hobbies. You must want all the same things. You must present as united. You must never need significant time apart. Your sex life should look a certain way. You should just know what your partner needs. Compromise means one person wins and one person loses, and so on and so forth. Now, I know a couple that have separate bedrooms, not because they don't love each other, they do deeply, but because he snores and she's a light sleeper who needs silence, and they both sleep better apart. They still have intimacy, they still connect, but their marriage includes separate sleep space because that actually serves their relationship. It nourishes it. And maybe society script says that's wrong. They're roommates, they're not spouses. That means something is broken. And their normal says, we know what works for us. Now, another fictional hypothetical example. They live in the same house but have separate finances, completely separate. They split shared expenses, but beyond that, their money is their own. Not because of distrust, because they came into the relationship as whole financial adults and didn't want to merge that. One is a spender, one is a saver, and keeping finances separate means they don't fight about money, and this arrangement works for them. Now, not to disrespect anybody's belief systems, but I know a couple where one is polyamorous and the other isn't, and they made it work through agreements that society would call impossible. It's messy sometimes. It requires constant communication. but it's their version and it works for them. So, what do all these examples have in common? That they're using a legal social structure of marriage, but they've rejected the script about what marriage must look like. They've defined their own version, and the relationships are often more honest, more sustainable, and more actually connected than performative perfect couple marriages. People can breathe better in them. So, your relationship to any structure is yours to define. Now, for career and work, society script will say your job title defines you. Success is more money, higher position, better LinkedIn titles, climbing the ladder, work life balance means you're not committed enough, salary is your worth, job hopping is instability, side hustle, you're lazy. So, your normal might be, again using examples, I know someone who walked away from a very high status corporate job to become a yoga teacher. And they now make a fraction of the money. And society calls it giving up or not living up to the potential or quarter life crisis. And their version could be I was dying in that job and now I'm alive. I make enough to live simply and I have my life back. That's my version of success. Another person works a just okay job that they don't love, and that's fine. Doesn't need to be passionate about work. Work pays the bills, provides benefits, and gives structure. Passion lives in their hobbies, their relationships, their creative projects. And for them, work is just work. And that's valid too. And then another changed career 3 times. Now, society says, can't commit, can't figure it out, must be flaky. Their version is, I'm a multi passionate person. I explore, I evolve, and my resume doesn't tell a linear story, and that's fine. Now, all these things, what do they have in common? That they've rejected the work defines your worth script. Work is a part of life, but it's not life itself. So they've defined success on their own terms, which sometimes means less money, less status, and less external validation. And here's what I've noticed. They're often more content than people with impressive titles who hate their work lives. The need for income exists 100%. Your definition of what work means is for you to define. Now, last one, home ownership. Now, society says home ownership is successful adulthood. Renting is you haven't figured it out yet, or you're poor, which is somehow shameful, or your home should look Pinterest perfect, or at least Instagram acceptable. Location matters. Your home is an investment, a statement, a proof that you've made it. Living with roommates past 30 is embarrassing. Living with family as an adult is failure. Tiny homes are either trendy or sad, depending upon your income level. Now, your normal might be like this person that I know. Now, I know someone who rents a small apartment in their 40s by their choice. They could afford to buy, but chooses not to. Why? I don't want the maintenance. I don't want the commitment. I don't want the debt. I like flexibility. I like that when something breaks, I can call the landlord, can move when I want, and this works for me. Now, society says they are not a real adult, and they say my version of adulthood includes mobility and simplicity. Now, another person bought a tiny house, not because it's trendy, but because small space means less to manage, less to clean. They don't care that they can't host Thanksgiving dinners, and that's not their priority either. Now, once again, home is functional shelter. It's not proof of worth. So they've rejected the home ownership milestone and defined living situations that actually serve their lives. A roof over your head exists as a necessity, and what it looks like is for you to define. Now, the script that brings it all together is the adult life script. Now, let's look at the general timeline in the society for the adult life script. So I need to graduate by 22. I need to have a career established by 25, married by 30, house by 32, kids by 35, figured out and settled by 40, midlife crisis allowed at 45, retirement planning starts 50, actual retirement 65, and guess what? Then you can finally live briefly before you die. Now, your normal might be, once again using completely fictional hypothetical examples. I know someone who went back to school at 45, and society says it's too late, you should be established by now. And they say, I'm finally pursuing what I actually want, and I have decades left. Another person, single at 50, never married, no kids, completely at peace with it. And society says something must be wrong with them. And they say, I built the life I wanted, and it doesn't include a partner or kids. And that's valid too. Another had kids when they were just 20. So they are done with that phase while their peers are just starting out. Now society says, you've missed out on your youth. And they say, I'll have my freedom in my 40s while everyone else is dealing with teenagers. Now another got divorced at 60, started over, new career, new city, new life. You're too old for that. And they say, I have time left and I'm using it. So once again, they've all rejected the age-based milestone script that we all carry subconsciously, and they're living according to their actual lives. Time passes regardless. What you do with it is yours. Now let's bring all of this into your actual physical experience. Because this isn't philosophy, this lives in your body. So bring your awareness to your body right now and just notice what's present without trying to change anything. Think about a label that you carry. Pick one, just one. Spouse, parent, professional, healer, adult, successful person, good person. Whatever label feels most active in your life right now. Now notice. When you think about performing the label correctly, being the good version, meeting the expectations, doing it right according to standards, what happens in your body? Now, for many people, there may be immediate tension. Maybe your shoulders rise, maybe your jaw clenches, maybe your chest tightens, maybe your breath becomes shallow. Maybe there's a sense of heaviness, bracing, or constriction. So, this is what performance feels like somatically. Your body goes into a subtle form of activation, not full threat response, but not relaxed either. It's holding, monitoring, and checking. Am I doing this right? Am I good enough? Am I meeting the standard? And this is exhausting. This chronic low level activation depletes your nervous system over time. You're constantly vigilant about whether you're fitting the expectations. You never fully rest because there's always this question: am I enough? Now try something different. Think about the same role: spouse, parent, professional, whatever you choose. But this time imagine inhabiting it on your own terms, your version, your definition. What would it feel like to be a spouse who does marriage your way, not society's way? To be a parent who trusts your approach rather than performing for the parenting culture? And to be a professional who defines success on your own terms? Notice the difference in your body. And for many people, something softens, not dramatically, but in a subtle way. Maybe your breath deepens slightly, maybe your shoulders drop of action, and maybe there's a sense of more space and less constriction. That's the somatic difference between performance and authenticity, between following a script and creating your normal, your own normal. Your body has been trying to tell you this all along. When you're performing a role that doesn't fit, your body knows. It shows you through tension, through exhaustion, through that sense of never being able to fully relax. But when you're being authentic, even if it doesn't look right to others, your body settles. Not into perfect peace necessarily, but into a more natural state. Less effort, less monitoring, more of just being. And this is wisdom older than thought. Your nervous system doesn't care about society's approval. It cares about whether you're safe, whether you can be yourself, and whether you're living in integrity with your actual needs and your truth. Spend a moment here with me, being with whatever you notice. Not trying to fix or change anything, just acknowledging. This is how performance feels in my body. This is how authenticity feels in my body. My body knows the difference. Now, I want you to share what I've witnessed, both in my own messy, imperfect life and in working with different people, about what becomes possible when you stop performing and start creating your own normal. First, your relationships become more real. When you're not performing the role of good spouse or perfect parent or successful friend, when you're just being yourself, the messy, imperfect human that you are, the people who love you get to love the actual you, not the performance. And the people who liked only the performance, they might leave you. And that's information. It's painful sometimes, but it's honest. I've had friendships end when I stopped performing. Together, therapist who has it all figured out. Some people wanted the performance. They wanted me to be their wise guide, not their equal human friend. And when I showed up as myself, anxious, uncertain, still figuring it out. Friendship just fell apart. Better to know, better to have connections with people who want you, not your performance. Authentic connection only happens when people meet each other as they actually are, not as they are supposed to be. Second, your energy returns to you. Do you know how much energy it takes to maintain a constant state of performance? To monitor whether you're doing it right, to adjust yourself based on what others expect. And that energy is life force energy. When you reclaim it, when you stop using it all on performance, it becomes available for actually living. People often say, I didn't realize how exhausted I was until I stopped performing, until I stopped caring. And then suddenly I had energy for things I cared about. Third, your body relaxes. Not all at once, not completely, but incrementally, your nervous system begins to settle. Because it's no longer in chronic vigilance about whether you're acceptable. It's no longer monitoring the constant gap between who you are and who you are supposed to be. Your shoulders drop, your jaw softens, and your breath deepens. Not because you're trying to relax, because you're just yourself. And fourth, this might seem counterintuitive, but you actually become capable of genuine contribution. When you're performing, you're offering what you think people want from you. When you're authentic, you're offering what you actually have to give, which is often more valuable, more unique, more useful than performance ever was. My work got better when I stopped performing the perfect healer because I started offering what I actually know, not what I think therapists or books or theories are supposed to say. The real stuff, the messy stuff, the I don't know, but let's figure it out together stuff. Now, the beautiful part, you begin to find your people, the one who see the world the way you do. Not necessarily people who live exactly like you or make the same choices, but people who understand the difference between structure and script. People who are also creating their own normal. People who get it when you say, I'm doing this my way, without needing you to explain or justify. When you stop performing, you stop attracting people who only liked the performance. And you start resonating with people who recognize authenticity when they see it. So these connections feel different, deeper, more real, and less exhausting. Because you're not managing impressions, you're just meeting each other as you actually are. You might find them in unexpected places, not necessarily in your existing circles, though sometimes yes. Sometimes it may be a person, a friend who's been waiting for you to drop the mask. And sometimes the universe may send a new person precisely because you're finally being yourself. Sometimes it's a whole community of people who have questioned the scripts and they are living their own versions. And that's the gift of authenticity. It acts as a beacon. Your real self calls other people's real selves. And suddenly you're not alone anymore. You're not the only one questioning. You're not weird for not fitting in. You've found your people, the ones who understand that there are many ways to be human. And your way is valid. Now, the moment you stop trying to fit the labels, the moment you accept that you might never fit them perfectly, that's when you can actually inhabit roles in a way that feel authentic. Not because you're performing them correctly, because you're relating to them more honestly. Your spouse on your terms, your relationship on your terms, a parent in your way, a professional in your own definition, an adult living your version of adulthood. The freedom isn't from escaping the world, it's from being yourself within it. So, a lot of information to take in for your conscious mind, for your subconscious mind, for your body. So, I want you to offer some practical guidance on how we can continue this exploration into our day to day, because it's not just philosophy, this is something you can practice starting today. First thing, start noticing when you're performing versus when you're being authentic. Just notice it. Don't judge it, don't try to fix immediately, just awareness. So when you catch yourself thinking, a good spouse, parent, professional adult would do this, pause right there and then. Is this what you would actually do? Or is this what the script says you should do? And sometimes the answer will be both. I want to do this, and it's also what's expected. And that's also fine. That may just be alignment. But sometimes the answer will be, honestly, I'm doing this because I think I should, not because I want to. That's where this work fits in. Now, secondly, you can identify one area, just one area to start with. You can create your own normal. Pick one label, pick one role, pick one expectation, and ask yourself, what would my version look like here? Maybe it's just one small way to stop performing and start being honest. Maybe it's admitting to your partner, I don't actually enjoy whatever thing that we always do. Can we talk about changing it? Maybe it's telling a friend, I can't make it, and I'm not going to make up an excuse because I don't have the energy. Maybe it's deciding I'm not doing any elaborate holiday decorations this year because I don't care about them deep down. Start small, one thing, and that's enough. That's how it begins. Now, one last thing you can practice is tolerating other people's discomfort with your authenticity. Because here is what will happen. When you stop performing, some people won't like it because they preferred the role that you were playing. They're invested in the script. Your authenticity might make them uncomfortable because it highlights their own lack, their own performance. So their discomfort is information, but is not a reason to go back to pretending. So you can be compassionate about their discomfort while still being authentic. I see my choices make you uncomfortable, and that's okay. You can be uncomfortable. I'm still doing this. And finally, remember, structures can serve you. There's nothing wrong with participating in society, having roles, or engaging with collective life. The question is, are you participating authentically or you're just being compliant? Are you using structures that serve you or you're being used by scripts that imprison you? Use what serves you, reject what doesn't, and be open to defining your own version. As we close this journey together, just take one thing with you: permission. Permission to stop performing, permission to define your own normal, and permission to participate in a society while being yourself. You don't owe anybody anything, you don't owe anyone a performance, you don't have to fit into labels that were never designed for your shape. You have the roles without being imprisoned in them. The freedom to be yourself isn't something you can achieve once and it's done. It's something you practice daily. I am allowed to be myself. I am allowed to define my own normal. I am allowed to participate in society without performing for it. I can use structures that serve me and reject the scripts that don't. And that is enough. I am enough. I am enough. I am enough. Now take one last full breath. And now, when you're ready, carrying with you this permission, this possibility, you can just come back to full awareness. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your willingness to question what you've been taught. Thank you for the courage to be yourself in a world that often prefers performance. Until next time, namaste.